Hello and welcome to an episode of Casual Friday. I'm here with the Duck. As always, the show is brought to you by Woo. Links available in the description below. Don, so basically my entire watch list is green, except BTC and XRP. So I'm just going to give you a chance, maybe a 20-minute window to apologize for being a scammer and leading the masses to the slaughter. So take it away.
No, I mean, the Bitcoin thing is actually a little bit surprising. But if you look at your watch list again, you will see that ETH's actually outperforming pretty much everything. Anything ETH basically is outperforming, has been for the last 2 days. And I think that's basically why everything's green. Like whenever you have ETH strength, you get altcoin strength. So it's funny when people are kind of like shit talking ETH, they're shit talking their own bags essentially, because I mean, in recent history at least, you've only ever gotten good altcoin moves off the back of strong ETH.
And then we get punished for it for like 8 weeks.
Oh, I mean, yeah. And the reason why is because ETH is so big that it can pull bid away from Bitcoin. No other coin can do that. ETH can. But the moment coins like bid leave Bitcoin, they go to ETH and then they very quickly go to other altcoins. So that's the reason why like you have Bitcoin a little bit like weak, I think, is because you have a bunch of people basically bidding ETH right now, even though it's like very temporary, very like not that strong yet at least. And with XRP had some really weird flows like 5 days ago. Like on the breakdown, like when everything was breaking down, XRP broke down, but immediately fully sent and reclaimed everything. And it's actually like one of the only altcoins when you go on XRP BTC or like any others that is trading higher than where it has on before that breakdown. So like you had on the 26th of January, you had like a breakdown. XRP recovered pretty much immediately, and for example, like Solana is still significantly trading below there. Even like ETH's actually today reclaimed it, so ETH's also relative strong. Just because it doesn't move so much, doesn't like because ETH like Solana moves like 20%, ETH moves 2. But this is kind of how I gauge relative strength. With like you just look at what happened, like a significant market event, and then whatever reclaims the losses the fastest is the strongest. It's usually how I look at it. So ETH just caught up to XRP today. Everything else still hasn't. But given XRP got there first, I think it just makes sense that it chills a little bit. So yeah, but I could see, honestly, now that XRP has run like 5x and ETH hasn't done anything, that we get a little bit of a hated ETH rally that kind of like outperforms maybe even XRP. Wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't hate on it. I mean, I own both.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. That didn't sound like much of an apology. So, like, do you want to try again? Should we start re-recording? What's the plan here?
Yeah, I'm so sorry for shilling a 5x.
Yeah,
I feel really bad about it.
You should. It's the monthly close for those who celebrate in the TA community. It's like an international holiday, religious, quasi-pagan festival. Not a whole lot to say about it. I mean, we traded below previous month's low and are within previous month's high at the moment. So we're kind of constrained by the high and low of the sort of previous monthly candle. There's not a whole lot to say there, I don't think, on the monthly. I think the expectation on that close was, from a lot of market participants, a lot more downside. Because it's like and you remember the charts that went all over Twitter, right? Being like, oh look,
so
whenever
stupid,
there's like a red candle
Dude,
on BTC
one monthly. It just takes one monthly to get everyone be like, oh shit, it's so over. Like it's a pin bar, whatever. They get out their old trading books.
Yeah.
Where it's this like they have like 100 pictures of different candle closes.
Yeah,
and
the
always
classic,
like
the cheat sheet. It's like it's cheating you out of your money. That's all that's doing. Yeah, understandable. Like I get why you'd be cautious about like red monthlies on their own, but like that trade got rinsed pretty quickly. Because if you take the bare bones TA version of it's like a red pin bar, stop at the high, I mean you lost money. That's it. It's over.
Yeah.
Also, if you shorted the breakdown, you probably lost money. So it's been kind of a washed out signal. as we've argued previously, it's really the kind of monthly nukes into support that give this time frame most of its weight, and we're pretty far away from that happening. I mean, even how much do we go back and forth on 59k? Do you remember? And like the whole thing was, well, it's still above, so it's not bad, but using it as an entry trigger is going to be a pain in the ass because it's been doing that for 6-7 months. Like, it still did its job, but as you recall, like, no one was fucking staying in that monthly trade if they took it like on the first test or whatever. It was used more as maybe as a high time frame invalidation or whatever, but at the time it was just like range jerking on the weekly and on the daily time frame. It wasn't like the monthly was at the forefront, narratively speaking. And I feel like it's similar on this monthly. Like, a lot of weight was put on this shooting star looking thing, and Alec Baldwin aside, it didn't really do much, you know. Like, we're still within the high and low of the previous month, and I think if you want to make an argument that it should build out some sort of cluster of support here, you're asking for months of chop, essentially, because that's kind of how that works. And alternatively, would have to nuke like pretty low to the pre-Trump range for you to be at monthly support. So I don't know if there's anything else to say about that time frame.
I think if it nukes low enough to kind of be useful, you really don't want to use it. Like, if we lose all the Trump stuff that we've built, right? Like, because I think if there's one thing about the Trump presidency, it's like it is supposed to be bullish crypto, right? Like, that's the one thing I think you can say as like a crypto participant with like full certainty. The stuff that he's done is very different from what the Democrats did before. Like, he started a meme coin. He generally has money to earn if this shit goes up, right? Like, he has an incentive for it to go up. He's like, a lot of the people around him, including his entire family, owns a bunch of crypto. Not that that should matter for a normal president, but this is not a normal presidency, right? So you have Trump in charge, and he's kind of like also pushing for crypto stuff. So if you lose all of the progress that's been made under him price wise, I think that's a very bearish signal. So I don't think the monthly is really that useful, just generally at this stage of the cycle. You're not going to find any resistance on the monthly. The supports that we're going to find, I mean, you have support in the 60s, and that would be like a nice like intermediate bounce. But I don't think it would be the long-term bounce if we go all the way back there. Like, I don't think that would be the bottom, right? Like, let's say we go to 110 and then we nuke to like 70 or 60. I think there's a good chance it will bounce to like 80 and then dump towards like 50 or something. So I don't think it's necessarily super useful. And I've seen a lot of people like you talked about with the pin bar, whatever it's called, candle that's bearish. I think you can, on that front, you can just ignore it. You just open the monthly if you want to see a nice looking chart. And if it starts looking shit, I think the cycle's over. So
great.
Yeah. But right now, I mean, it looks great, right? Like, there's no real reason to be sad when you look at the monthly. And we talked about this last month too, and I also said the same thing. Like, I don't, just because there's one red candle, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
So for now, really good. Let's say this cycle continues and we go towards like 200k, and then we can talk about like 70k, 80k support being nice. Right now, where we are too close to 60k, but also narratively, we can never go there before the end of cycle, kind of thing, I think.
So like the Trump inauguration candle is the real support.
Yeah, I mean, that's your invalidation, basically. Yeah. And I think if we go through like a bunch of price action, we go much higher than we are right now. Then I wouldn't necessarily say that anymore.
Sure.
Because I think then the 60, 70k becomes really nice support. But just like we've had one impulse off that area, I think you don't want to retrace that entire impulse. I think it's structurally very important at this stage.
Yeah,
it's going to change later.
I mean, we're still pretty early to the monthly breakout, or like breakout on this time frame, so to speak, right? Because it was what we had last month, which is a bit of a nothing burger. So it's only been like 2 full months since the breakout. Like, think about an hourly breakout. Like, if you're making strong decisions about that breakout 2 hours later, it's probably like not an amazing sign, right? And I think it applies to the monthly as well. Like, technically speaking, after like a 6-7 month range, etc., if it's just like one impulse candle, and then immediately after that you start getting sweaty, then either you're mismatching time horizons or there's just weakness in the market to make you question the breakout in the first place. But yeah, I mean, the monthly at the moment, I don't want to read into it too much, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
go on.
I mean, just generally, like when you look at it face value, what happened was basically we had 60K all-time high. We broke above it, immediately retested, which is not great, right? Like usually you want to have it run away. And then it had an impulse to the upside. And then imagine you get another retest of a range breakout. Like that's just so shit. Like it just ignored it as Bitcoin, ignored it anything like that. This is such a high time frame chart. Just generally imagine a range breakout where you immediately retest, then run up, get a nice impulse, and then retest again. Like at that point, anyone would be like, hey, this is going to fall back in the range. Like maybe we get a bounce, but it's going to fall back in the range.
But according to Baby Pips, Don, the retest confirms the support, you know? Like the market is really nice like that. It just taps you on the shoulder and gives you a nice thumbs up and lets you know that you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean... That's why everyone loses trading, right? Yeah, because that's the kind of information that they get. But like just generally, this is why I think it's such an important area. Just because, just at face value, like this cannot really go down there unless we're fucked.
Sure.
So that's the monthly. I think the weekly is more interesting.
Yeah, that's the one you tweeted out. You've been tweeting a lot also. Is everything okay at home? Like, what's going on?
Dude, I mean, I cannot leave the house because my wife's so pregnant that I have to take care of things. So I'm just like, I'm stuck at home and I'm like, what the fuck am I, like, what am I going to do, right? Like, there's only so much hours in the day that you can spend running around the house with the child.
Sure.
So, like, And I'm currently, sadly, I don't really have a game to play. Usually when I'm in this situation, I cannot leave the house. I just game a little bit, but right now I don't really.
You've got to play Dynasty Warriors Origins, dude. If you ever played those hack and slash games back in the day on the PS2 and stuff, they released the newest version using making the most of the new gen, next gen hardware or whatever. The whole 1 versus 1,000 hack and slash thing with some RPG elements. It's absolutely sick. #ad #graph. But it's like one of the first games I played on like the PlayStation 2. So maybe I'm just like a nostalgia loaded idiot. But that's a really fucking good one. It's impossible not to have a good time playing that game.
Dude, I'm such a sucker for nostalgia, just generally. Like, I think the older you get,
I mean, I've seen your trading watch list, dude. I know.
No, but just like when I was a child, I was playing Diablo 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, every time like I see that game, I'm like, oh shit, I want to boot this up again. And it's probably objectively like not like if someone new comes to the game, he's like, this is such a piece of shit in comparison to anything else. But like if you've played it as a child, it's just the greatest thing ever. So like, I mean, it's the same for me where I'm like, I just want to play the games that I've played as a child or like as a teenager. So good.
Exactly. So there you go. I've just given you a real shill there for the first time on this show. Me shilling you something. Yeah, the weekly time frame, like that weekly cluster is still proving like almost annoyingly useful, if that makes sense. You know, the 98K one, 97, 98K. It's been pretty fucking decent, all things considered. Like it was the resistance that led to that little shakeout on the first test, and actually just like 2 times when it was testing the underside. And since then, on this week's dip, that's kind of where it bottomed out as well. So I don't think it's kind of a washed out level. It still seems pretty relevant. And then I guess looking up, there really isn't much. You have to look at the highest weekly close, right? Because people, at least some market participants, use that to index strength, weakness. I think historically, it's not a terrible way to look at market structure either. To look at the highest close, lowest close, something I like to do. And if you look at the line chart, it just makes it very easy to look at market structure in a somewhat reasonable way. And we're essentially playing ping pong between those, and it's actually quite narrow, all things considered, right? Like 98 to 105 is pretty narrow, and I think that's where what your tweet was trying to speak to, not to speak for you. That's fucking half of what I do on this show. And it was like, look, if anyone macro flipped bias like 50 times during the course of like this price action, you need to be careful if you follow someone like that too closely, because in the grand scheme over the last like few weeks, really not much has changed.
Yeah, nothing. Like straight up. This is one of the tightest ranges we've had in a long time. And the funny thing is, like, I would understand if we went from range high to range low, where people start flipping, but we went from range high to range midpoint. I'm like, Like, what are you talking?
It's
You
like
flipped your
7%
position 4
from
times.
those levels, you know? And I think the daily shows that range best. Even if you use just the lowest close, highest close type of thing, you essentially get 106, 91.9, and 99. And we just went from range high to... And we tested the range midpoint. It's not like we were grinding on that level for fucking weeks and, you know, you lose your mind. We wicked there on one day.
Yep.
At least for the moment. So, like, diddling in the middle, getting rewarded as usual. But that's... I think if I had to use, like, one roadmap for BTC, it'd probably be this daily version with 92, 99, 106, because like it's behaving very well. It's doing what you'd expect it to do. It's not giving you any nasty looking fake out signals or churning through the levels. It's just the state of the market right now. But I mean, that's part of a broader point that like no one, like BTC isn't the market if you're the average crypto participant, as we've discussed before.
Yes.
Like you'd be better off if it were. And I still think, as per articles I've written in the past, you can derive a lot of utility from looking at BTC. But like the dispersion is crazier than ever. I feel like it's not even just like BTC versus everything else. Like the entire centralized exchange trading breed of traders has kind of died, or been co-opted by pump fun in one form or another. And so like now the meta isn't like, oh, let me just ride a trend on this or trade perps on that or whatever. It's basically how quickly can I insider or as early as possible snipe this launch and turn it into a runner and turn a few sol into a lot of sol. And, you know, with all these fucking celebrities getting in again and more grifts and more extractions and post-Trump, people seeing how quickly that generated a ton of wealth, a lot of attention has shifted in that direction. So like the dispersion is fucking crazy between like BTC and ETH, BTC and alts, and then even further now between like alts that are on centralized exchanges versus like an entirely different game of people trying to find trench runners. Like there is no like single cohesive understanding of the market. You could talk to two different people at the same time and they're having wildly fucking different experiences of crypto in their portfolio because they're in completely different universes as far as the market is concerned. That wasn't the case back in the day because like BTC is up, basically everything is up. There are like fucking 30 coins and everyone's having like a good time, right? Whereas now it's like, oh, well, BTC hasn't done much and, you know, my position's down 4% and someone else like round trip 9 figures and then lost 6 on something that was a bundled scam. You know, like it's unreal. There's no general sense of the market that you can accurately derive as far as, you know, the average man in the crypto space, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, WIF went below $1 while Bitcoin was ranging at 100K. Like that's insane. Like WIF is down, like, and this is just the one that I think most people on CT are familiar with. That's why I'm mentioning it. But most other meme coins did the same thing. WIF went down from high to low by 80% in a time where Bitcoin did nothing. Like Bitcoin literally didn't do anything, and WIF went down 80%. Popcat did the same thing. Like those are the big altcoins that like everyone kept talking about. Like Popcat went down like 85. So you kind of like you got completely shit on if you held anything that conventional wisdom in like at least for recent people, like recency bias. If you had any recency bias, you completely wiped out, right? Because everyone was kind of got trained that you don't want to hold old coins. You just don't. You just want to hold anything that's new while Bitcoin shows strength, because then you're going to make more money. And then people got into that more and more and more. And well, Bitcoin didn't go up, but it didn't go down either. And all of those coins just basically disappeared, right? And I think that's where a lot of this comes from, because a lot of the old money isn't really that active, right? Like the people that hold old coins, I mean, like the XRP tarts, for example, right? Like the people that hold XRP, a lot of them have been around for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They see it go up, they see it go down. They don't really give a shit anymore. Like they've basically lost a fortune and made a fortune like 100 times already. Whereas with the new coins, and I think this is why they're so susceptible. Thank you.
Awful
to
word.
these kind of fucking terrible. To these kind of moves is because like the moment it goes down 10%, people start losing faith, and then like the people of lesser faith start losing faith. They dump, and then it's down 20%, and then people with a little bit more faith in the coin start losing faith, and then it's down 50%, and so on, right? And I think that's kind of what's been happening. Like you've had infinite new coins launch on the pump fund side, on the Solana side, just generally, which takes bid away, which leads to initial weakness, and then that initial weakness leads to people just completely losing their mind, and then it all kind of like a house of cards just kind of implodes. And it's been an interesting few weeks on that front. Like Bitcoin didn't do anything. A lot of coins moved a lot. It's just not to the upside, but to the downside.
It's just fucking crazy. I mean, some of these, like you mentioned Popcat, Nero is another one that's down like fucking 86%. That was down 86% from like high to low. Even like some of the strong ones, like Bonk, for example, from high to low, that's like 63%. And obviously, like there's a world of difference between being down 60 and down 80. And doesn't sound like much, but that's not the way the maths. I mean, Cat was shilled and listed in a bunch of places. That went down fucking 80% as well. And the crazy point here is it's not like the classic victory lap of, haha, I told you meme coins could go down. It's like, fine, we've talked about that point enough. Although I still hold reservations about the fucking degree of gaslighting I had to go through on this point. But nonetheless, it's like your drawdown on altcoins while BTC is above 100K is the max sort of top to bottom drawdown that you would experience in BTC from like bull market top to bear market bottom.
Yeah,
and
literally.
That's kind of fucking insane, right? Like if you take those two things, like BTC is basically at an all-time high, and if you're holding the wrong stuff, your portfolio went through an entire fucking bear market drawdown. Like that sentence is insane, right? Like it kind of almost shouldn't exist in crypto, and historically hasn't existed in crypto. Like you were more or less tied at the hip with some periods of, oh, fucking Link is going up in a bear market, or like, you know, BTC went down 70 and this went down 90, but at least BTC is going to come back. But for the most part, you were kind of tied to BTC to a large extent. But now with all these new fucking listings, all these new tokens, and just the way the market and liquidity is fragmented, you have people in the same market who've just gone through like literally a fucking full bear market drawdown with BTC at all-time high. And that is just insane to me to say out loud.
So the Bitcoin maxis are right now at the peak of a bull market. I mean, can obviously go higher. And the altcoin people are at the lows of a bear market. Obviously can go lower too. Same applies for both. But that's insane. Yeah.
Goat, Floki, Moodang, Mew. I mean, fucking everything. I mean, even stuff like Sheeb, Trump.
Trump's also down like 60% or something, right?
It's very, well, it's ridiculous, you know.
Like it's down. Yeah, Trump is down 66% at the current moment.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that one is a little bit. I mean, that one was just self-inflicted pain. Whoever advised Trump is just an idiot.
Oh my god, yeah. Still. One of the biggest fumbles I've ever seen, to be honest.
We talked about this last week.
Yeah, I still
hilarious. Like that's still like one of the biggest financial fumbles of all time. I don't think people talk about it enough.
I completely
people just
agree.
Ignore it. It's the biggest fuck up, like from someone that is supposedly like one of the best businessmen on the planet. At least that's what's said about him. This is some of the most retarded things.
I mean, it's clearly some fucking swamp creature that did this for him and wanted to lock in insider trading gains, you know, like, but it's still retarded.
I still, I just like a couple of minutes ago on Twitter, I had an argument with a guy because I love doing that.
Oh, nice,
That basically said like, hey, dude, this is not like, because basically the Trump team, right? They launched on Solana. Like the Trump coin launched on Solana, and the only thing that they've been buying is ETH and ETH related things, right? So basically they launched on, and I mean, this is just me looking at what they've been doing and could be inaccurate and maybe there's more to it. But from like a surface level of understanding, I looked at it and I'm like, they launched on Solana. Everyone sold their Solana shit to buy Trump. And then Trump went around and bought a bunch of ETH with that money that he made, which is so fucking funny to me. And I mean, like that's a decent business move. Like, because if he had launched on ETH, I think he would have made less money, probably. Like the coin would have gone up less. But it's so fucking funny. And then someone in my comments was like, this is not Trump's doing. Like, this is not how it works. Like, Trump has no idea about blockchains, whatever. And my argument, right, and it's the same, the reason why I'm mentioning it is because it's the same thing, essentially what you said, is that, I mean, like, as the president, your responsibility is picking capable people and like around you, and making them do good things, right? Like things that make sense, whatever. So if you pick someone that is a swamp creature that knows nothing about what the fuck they're actually doing, that is not on that person, but it's on you as the leader, right? And I see this a lot where people kind of excuse a leader's responsibility or like failures because they're like, yeah, but someone under him did this. But at the end of the day, like if you truly lead people, you're responsible for them because you picked them, right? And if you pick an idiot, it's your fault because you picked an idiot. So I would say, like it's still like this is still on Trump, right? You just picked the wrong person for the job.
Yeah, I think the counter argument is essentially like a lack of surprise, and you know, it's almost like a bigotry of low expectations. Like, no, I don't think any reasonable person expected Trump to like sit down and discuss a fucking token launch and learn about what chain to do it on and how do we keep value and maintain momentum.
I mean, that'd be bearish if anything.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, what's the fucking dilutionary effect of launching a Melania coin, etc. It's just some fucking swamp creature. And I agree that ultimately falls on him, but I guess I'm just like not surprised. I know neither are you. It's just a different model of like what qualifies as responsibility. But it's like just some fucking swamp creature who decided to monetize his connection excessively and make money. Although the funny part is that decision, that really short-term game to like launch Melania as well, ultimately cost them like a fuck ton more money versus just letting Trump ride, you know?
Could have bought so much more ETH.
Yeah, could have bought a lot more ETH. But also, not to be too down about it, this person is playing the Solana game correctly. You just come, fucking extract, and buy other stuff with the money you make on Solana, right? Like,
it's hilarious.
That is the playbook. You know, just outflows from Solana into USD bank accounts, Lambo dealerships, and whatever else. So
I mean, it is fucking hilarious. Like that whole event, just like with the Trump coin launch, with the Melania coin, and then that they take that money on ETH, it's just like, this is the funniest thing that could have happened. And I mean, honestly, I'm kind of glad that they launched the Melania coin, because if they didn't, all we would really be trading would be Trump, I think. And I mean, I don't necessarily want to do that. Like if it would have just been Trump, you know, like that would be the obvious trade of the cycle, right? The rest of the cycle. Because you're like, okay, this is the president's coin. He's into crypto. Who knows what he's gonna do? Maybe he adds it to the strategic reserve. Like all of that talk would have been like 100 times bigger. And I really wouldn't want to trade like a celebrity token for the rest of the cycle. Like fuck me, like that would have been terrible. So I mean, I'm maybe the person that advises him was just like, dude, if we truly do this, we fuck crypto too much. Let's just launch a second one to take the impact and the importance of this coin away. So maybe he was like an idealist at the end of the day. But I think it worked out quite fine in the end. It's just for the people that are holding Trump and Melania, obviously not the best. And for Trump himself, obviously like a terrible business decision.
Well, it would have been nice to have some sort of focal point for a single token. Like, I know there's a liquidity black hole that was caused as a result, but nowadays it's like nothing can run because everyone just fucking apes so aggressively. Insiders sell and then it fucking dies, you know? And like, that's it.
Fair enough.
Like, you miss it for like 2 hours. You go take a shit and you've missed generational wealth, and that's it. There's no new runners. You need to fucking update your watch list every 10 seconds. You can't even have a watch list because by the time you add it, it's stale. Centralized exchange trading, like no one gives a shit. Like it's dead. It's I don't know. It's a very fucking strange market to be in at the moment. I feel like you either have to play Bitcoin games and win Bitcoin prizes, or you might as well go to the other fucking tail end and try to become an insider essentially on these launches and, you know,
I mean, that's what
tokens.
99% of the calls have been, like KOLs have been doing.
Yeah. Or, you know, just take money to pump tokens or whatever else. But like this median model of like, oh, you know, there's a risk curve and BTC, maybe it's not volatile enough, but the high caps should, like, that approach is dead, it seems. At least dead at the moment. Because
right now, I feel like we're kind of going back to it though a little bit.
I'd welcome it because that feels, I mean, that's a biased statement from just familiarity and what I like and whatever else. I do think it's slightly better for the market as a whole in terms of longevity if every single day isn't just like some fucking 9-figure extraction from Sol to like a small concentrated group, you know? Like that kind of stuff is nice. Like the reason the whole market cycle, you know, BTC, ETH, risk curve shit wasn't the worst thing in the world, because depending on the cycle, there was at least some sort of like wealth effect or money multiplier effect that trickled down as a result. Now, obviously, it was very fucking inflated as far as how useful that was, and the idea became extreme that, oh, you never have to rotate from crypto. I'm sure you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, you know, we just jump from one thing to the other, and then you just farm stable coins on Anchor protocol or whatever, right? Like, that ages poorly. But I do think, like, that high cap, you know, BTC, ETH, high cap, mid cap, low cap, etc., was more longevity oriented. You'd get longer trends. It was less insidery, and you'd at least make a better argument for like a wealth effect, money multiplier effect, whatever. And not all of those things are terrible. Whereas with this, I think it's just pure fucking extraction in most cases, and there's no wealth effect. The trends are becoming like, you know, it went from metas to, you know, like a week maybe. Now it's days, and now it's literally hours. Like if you miss the launch, you're fucked, and you're a piece of shit. You're never making money again. You know.
I mean, we went from like we went from something evil, which was the whole VC meta, right? Where like a bunch of VCs just circle jerk each other, and they're up like 100x before the coin even launches. Which is obviously not great, right? But we still had like good runs afterwards. Like these coins launched 100x higher than what the VCs paid for them. And then we got like a like sustained run of like a 10, 15, 20x afterwards. And then it died. We went from that and replaced the VCs with something much more evil, which is just like these like KOLs that just cannot wait to make their first 100K and then buy a Lambo with it. And what the VCs kind of did, which is also kind of funny in hindsight, is basically they took their money, they invested it, they made a bunch of multipliers, and then they put it back in crypto, kind of try to run it up like we're all gonna make it, like Three Arrow Capital style, right? Where they just like all in all the time. And that was the hot ball of money, right? That was going around, where you had this whole like, okay, there's a new narrative, like a new like coin narrative. And then it would take forever for them to deploy from one to the next coin. And we would have like nice stable trends where stuff goes 10x. And then like at some point it starts running out of steam, but it goes down slower because they're not allowed to sell as quickly, and they usually wouldn't. We went from that to like KOLs that get all the money at launch, try to get as many people in as possible, and then they dump everything that they have, and then they pay it out like into USD and buy new watches, right? Like I think anyone can see how one is worse than the other for the market as a whole, even though both are shit, right? You don't want to be ruled by the VC class that kind of makes the lion's share of all the money. But I think the KOL shit that's happening now and the meme coin shit, where everyone is just kind of like trying to make a quick buck so they can take the money out of the market and buy, like I said, like some dumb bullshit that no one needs. I think that's more damaging and has kind of done like the reason why this cycle is so weird and so shit in comparison to other cycles is because of that. Like the money doesn't roll around; it goes into the pockets of individuals that are maximum grifting, and they go and spend it on whatever useless.
Yeah, it never comes back
stuff
at all.
Yeah,
and it also affects just like the trading opportunities that are available. Like I've argued previously, and I still believe this to be true, that like most crypto traders make a disproportionate amount of their lifetime P&L from trend trading specifically. And when you have this meta, by definition, you can't really have trends because it just goes fucking straight up immediately, and then in most cases, as the timelines become more constricted, it just goes straight down, and that's it. It's like a one-shot type of thing, right? Like you're either there for the launch super early at like 3 a.m. Euro time, or you're fucked, and there's no in between. Whereas in the past, it's like, oh well, crypto is like in a bull market. I've been holding A, B, C, and D for X number of months, and they've all just been fucking going up because crypto's going up. You know, you can't even do that shit anymore. Like BTC is an all-time high, and if you're holding centralized exchange altcoins, you're down 60 to 80%. That's insane, you know? And yeah, the wealth also just gets, it's only one way, you know? So I wonder how that plays out. I think eventually, just like most things, just like with the meme coins, the pendulum kind of swings or some fatigue sets in and it just becomes too cynical, too extractive. People stop, after you get burned the 8th time and you realize there are no runners, it's just insiders fucking dumping on you. You kind of stop playing those games. But I think it's lasted for a lot longer than I would have expected it to, And there's always like one launch that kind of brings it back and recalibrates your faith into the project as a whole. So for example, like, people always use Trump as a guiding light of sorts, saying, oh, if only I was there for Trump, I would have made XYZ amount of money. And then they use that logic to then justify aping into the next fucking 20 rugs, It's like eating shit at the casino, you're about to leave, and then some guy hits like a massive winner right next to you. And you're like, so it is still possible, I shouldn't give up. When you go back to bleeding out your portfolio, essentially.
Yeah, well said.
Speaking of bleeding out your portfolio, let's look at BTC.
Yep. I mean, dude, look at the daily and zoom in very, very closely.
Okay, I've zoomed in very closely. It's the greenest green candles that have ever greened.
I mean, that's very green if you zoom in very, very closely.
I've literally only got the 2 green candles on my chart right now.
I mean, that's exactly the kind of attitude that you need to have. We need more of that attitude and less of the other. I mean, ETH BTC, despite, like, let's start high time frame. It still looks like shit on the high time frame. It's just how it is. The monthly candle, like we have 11 hours to go till the monthly close, and we already broke in support, right? So that's not great. But I'm just gonna ignore it. And then you go on the weekly time frame, and we're still like trading dog shit, but we'll just ignore it. So we go to the daily time frame. We look at those 2 green candles, and we're like, that's it. Yeah, it's over for the bears.
It's a completely fine trading strategy there,
Yeah, I mean, that's just how you have to look at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
you come to a conclusion and you look for the evidence after the fact on like one time
exactly.
frame that supports it.
You just look for the time frames that support your thesis, not the other way around.
Perfect. That's a real masterclass you're putting on here.
If you look at the daily and zoom in far enough, I mean, that's clearly bullish. And if you look at the 4 hour and zoom in far enough, that's like, I mean...
It's almost an uptrend,
No, I mean, like all jokes aside, obviously, if BTC is still shit, right? It is nice price action, especially given that it's right now, like, it's the only thing that's really moving, right? What we've had in the past, and this is how I look at it. Basically, like you look at the market and you see ETH is up like 3% versus Bitcoin, and Solana is up nothing against Bitcoin. So it's not like okay, layer ones are going up right now. It's ETH is going up, right? And everything that is like ETH adjacent is going up. Like Lido's been up, Link's up. I mean, Link you can argue, but still, like anything ETH is going up right now, and that's good. It's better than when you have like the whole, like everything going up, because then it's still like ETH just underperforming everything else, right? So there is some bid on ETH right now in the last 2 days, but ETH BTC is still a piece of shit, needs to do a lot more work to be convincing. But it's the first step, and I think the more interesting chart is still ETH USD, and it's the one chart. Like,
I mean, that must be pushing your patience in terms of time, right? Like, well, for the average market participant, anyway. Because if you're used to like 2 hour windows to make 8 figures or whatever, this thing is taking its sweet time. Like, this is one of those where, again, the plan remains unchanged, to use that famous quote. But if you're sitting in this trade, like, look, basically it's the 3K reclaim, right? No matter how you slice it. That has been valid since November. It's the fucking end of January, and you had like 3 weeks of upside that probably made you feel like, okay, finally we're taking another crack at 4K and it's gonna fucking send now. Thank God I bought the reclaim. And that entire thing got retraced, which is fucking terrible. And a bunch of news and headlines and things to digest in the meantime. And even in the last 2 weeks, like, on the week of the 13th of January, we can say that was the retest week. Right? So you're like, yo, holy shit, let's go. It retested, and even if you snipe the entry and you're fucking sending DonAlt all sorts of DMs being like, I love you, etc., like, you're up what? Even if you pico snipe the level and you look at it right now, that's like 13% on ETH.
No, but they did it with like 100x leverage.
Oh, okay, fine. But like, it's taken months within this 3K for this 3K reclaim structure trade to start to play out, and it kind of hasn't yet, right? And that's not necessarily an indictment on the setup itself, being like, oh, well, that's it. It means it's over. It's taking too long. I think that does become a material concern, like over time. But like as we saw with BTC, you can have a high time frame setup, and it took fucking 7 months to play out, like the 60K. 58K monthly retest, you know? So like this is one of those charts where we can revisit it every week and say, well, it's above 2.9K, so it's good, but it's almost giving me fucking BTC PTSD as far as how long it can checkbox the technicals without actually fucking do anything. Like I'm almost inclined to argue that you're better off like sacrificing yourself on the altar of the 4K breakout than holding this for however many weeks it takes to go up. Is that an insane view?
No, I think generally, like if you have the ETHUSD weekly open, the moment you start closing above 3.6K, like that big red candle after the green candle that we had,
the
like
last
just recently,
high, basically.
Yeah, the last high. I think the moment you close above that, you can make the breakout trade, and it's more likely than not to succeed. I generally think like the strength that we've had in the last 2 days, actually, like that's actually quite nice, and we could be there in 3 days, right? But it has been like a long time for crypto standards. For any other standards, it's just not that long, right? But yeah, I think that would be a breakout kind of trade opportunity. Comes with the normal breakout trade risks, obviously. But I mean, ETH's always been, for me at least, I kind of like Bitcoin went from 16K to 100K and ETH didn't really move. And I always felt like that ETH is gonna, before the cycle ends, it's gonna have a little bit of outperformance at some point, at the minimum. So I'm kind of like, this is a pretty high chance that this plays out. I'm probably not gonna make a 10x on that trade, but I'm more than happy to just kind of park some money there and then just take advantage of the fact that I'm like almost certain this is gonna give me returns. The risk to the downside, to me at least, was quite significant. That's why I like the trade, right? It's basically what I said earlier, like Solana moves 20%, ETH moves 2%. For me, the certainty that, okay, it's more like this is not going to go to zero, more likely than not. And it's just generally like a slower moving, higher probability trade is good enough for me. That's why I don't really care too much about the time it spends. But I would like it to move in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. Because at some point you run out of like space in the triangle. And if you kind of push it all the way, it's usually not a good sign. Like if you start like walking out of the pattern, and the only reason why I'm using a pattern in this case is because it's so large time frame, right? The low time frame patterns I find quite shit, but the high time frame patterns in crypto, at least nowhere else, but in crypto, have worked quite well for me. And if you walk out of that, it's not that good. Like you don't want to walk out of patterns. So please go in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. That'd be nice.
Yeah, makes sense. Although I think we discussed last week that paradoxically it'd almost be a sign of a last gasp of the market if
I think so, yeah.
Like, you know, that's one of those signals, you know, like after a full cycle of fucking underperformance, that this thing breaks out and looks like it's going to go to infinity. That breakout leg is, you know, I think would be a de-risk signal more so than not. Obviously it depends on like a million contextual factors as always, but like it's almost the equivalent, and we also mentioned this last week, of, you know, in previous cycles, Dino coins pumping. You're like, oh, holy shit, we've run out of stuff to pump and we've gone for bottom barrel dog shit to do it. Given how ETH, not that ETH is analogous to that in terms of tech or whatever else, but purely in terms of just like risk appetite and price, it feels like ETH could serve that role this cycle, where like, you know, the weakest narrative, worst performing, most disappointing for many participants, altcoin finally giving people a fucking pump and, you know, renewing that faith, as discussed earlier, that might be pretty bad. And just in general, like, it's been an unfortunately good predictive omen if ETH pumps that like something is wrong, which sucks. But I think there's some weight to it. But from purely trading point of view, I still think like 3.6. I think is actually quite aggressive, but I can understand why you're making that argument. It's kind of just an early trigger to 4K plus, right?
Yeah.
So in any case, you're either buying 2.9 due to proximity to invalidation, or you're doing like 3.6, 3.9, give it a chance on a breakout trade. I think those areas make sense. Or you're just fucking ignoring ETH, which also maybe isn't the most awful choice in the world.
Also good, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why every time ETH moves, like it's a bad sign for the market, is just because it's so big, right? Like the market cap of ETH, it's gotten much lower comparatively, but like it's still large enough that whenever ETH starts moving, it has a big impact on Bitcoin dominance, right? Like how much, like how much is ETH to like in that equation? Quite a lot, especially like when you look at ETH and XRP, like you add those two together and it's probably like more than the rest of the market combined in market cap. So like when these move, it takes a lot of money to move them, and ETH especially just drags attention. Like it literally like it becomes like that attention black hole basically, because ETH sounds great when it's going up. Like ETH, I think it's one of the only coins in crypto where it's like if that thing goes up, it like all the talking points are so perfect that people actually kind of convince themselves that it's the future, and like, oh yeah, it's super sound money, whatever the fuck. And no one understands what the ETH people are talking about because they get too complicated. And then everyone's like, okay, this is just this going to infinity. And then when it goes down, all these people look like complete jokes, right? Like, oh, they talked in fancy words and your coin is down like 60% while everything is mooning. You're an absolute idiot. And I think that's kind of like what ETH does. And it does it really well. Like the moment it goes up, you look very intellectual when you talk about it. The moment it goes down, you look like the absolute biggest pretentious prick on the planet. And the cool part about that is that like that kind of like cycle going back and forth is gonna produce a lot of love and hate. And that's always cool for a trader like us, right? When we're looking at this thing and people fucking hate it, it's usually like a good time to kind of like look at it a little bit more than normal. And the opposite is true. Like when people tell you that ETH is just so much better than Bitcoin, it's probably time to kind of look for your exit. And that's kind of been true like for the last couple cycles. I think still possible that happens this cycle, which is nice. I like that when you have a bunch of people being fooled that ETH's gonna overtake Bitcoin. That having that easy kind of top signal, it's a good one. So
Says the
I'm
guy
not
who's
complaining.
targeting a XRP BTC flipping.
I mean, that's obviously. Do you think people take me serious on this?
Yes, they do.
I'm
I mean,
not
can't you
sure.
tell from your fucking comments that they do? No one listens to this show. You have to realize. Like, our
I
comment section is that fucking XAI fucking scam, and I delete 50 comments and 50 more come back. So, like, it's impossible
yeah,
to win.
it's impossible.
But, like, yeah, I think the average Twitter person who doesn't listen to this show by definition, where you actually take time to flesh out your views and are pretty grounded for the most part, takes your stuff more or less seriously.
Face value, fair enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
maybe
and
it
that's without the
does.
people who just make up positions and make up trades and
I mean, that's
just make up
90%
stuff
of
in
CT
general.
at this point.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's ever been a lower EV in like actually posting your market views and trades than there is now. It's been bad for years. There's kind of no point in doing it, but it feels worse than ever now.
Oh yeah.
People complain in one breath that, oh, no one fucking posts their trades, everyone's like charting, LARPing, maybe up, maybe down, and then you actually make a call, and regardless of whether you're right or wrong, they'll either just like make that up, take it out of context, or try to quote unquote use it against you fucking 6 months later or something.
It's hilarious.
You know,
dude,
so it's
yeah.
like you have to realize that crypto Twitter is it's almost like a reality TV show. I think it's like one of those fucking dating shows where people just are massively invested in the characters, and the facts and truth and all that kind of stuff aren't actually important, and it's just about like drama and personalities and labels and all that type of stuff. It's no longer a place where you can actually go and talk to people, because trading is like inherently quite lonely, right? So
Yeah.
the whole point of CT to some extent was you go and chat to people going through the same stuff as you learn something, you get exposure to new projects and new takes, and people with traditional finance experience share some stuff, and you get to hear from programmers and traders and people from other markets. That vision is fucking dead years ago, and it's just an awful reality TV show at the moment. So yes, to answer your question, I think people take the stuff you say more or less at face value, certainly if they don't listen to this show. What do you think of XRP? Has that changed at all? We sort of discussed the BTC side and USD side as well, and it came back pretty quickly from the dump, but I mean, it kind of looks the same as before.
Yeah, nothing's changed really. One thing I can kind of, and I mean I could be completely wrong in this, and I'm holding both anyway, but I can kind of feel like a shift where it's like maybe ETH becomes more important than XRP
Already.
in the next. Yeah, I could see that be like at least for like a leg, because ETH is down so much that I literally could see ETH go like up like 15-20% in a day, and people are like, what the fuck? And I could see that lead to like a liquidity suck of other things. As in, like, I could actually see like ETH up and other things like other altcoins down. So like that's kind of my gut feeling, but I could be completely wrong, and I'm not changing my positioning anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But just looking face value at like XRP, I mean, it's still one of the best, if not the best chart in crypto right now. Like both on XRP USD and XRP BTC. Like if you do XRP USD, right? I mean, the high time frame charts are completely useless because we're basically trading like at all-time highs / above it. So like the first useful chart is the daily, and you can range that out quite nicely, right? Between like 3.3 and the dump candle, so 2.9 something. And have a pretty nice range, and that's a bullish looking range to me, and that is sitting above a range that played out to the upside. We got a little bit of a wick retest, like the highest close 2.7 something, and then basically we got a little bit of a retest, but it was just a wick, which I'm much more comfortable with than if we actually traded down there and put in closes and whatever. So basically, we retested the old range in a new range. It's a little bit reliant on Bitcoin going up, and sentiment on Bitcoin has been really bad because other altcoins have been going down, right? So Bitcoin's been trading like not the strongest, but also not bad. I think if Bitcoin breaks out, I could see confidence kind of returning, because right now it's a confidence game. I think something that I see a lot is people are very, very shaky and very afraid right now, and the only thing that can calm them down would be a massive run in either Bitcoin or ETH, or like a ginormous run in an altcoin that is a little bit bigger. And I'm not entirely sure if XRP can just run from here to like $5 without Bitcoin moving. I could see ETH run and kind of restoring confidence again. But so I just look at this. It's a good chart. We'll see which way it breaks out. I think it's probably going to break out to the upside out of that range. Especially if you zoom out, you're just like, this is just an insane chart. Like, makes no sense. And people are absurd. Like, the weekly chart is fucking insane.
Oh, you showed this so early.
yeah. I mean, I shielded like on the weekly time frame. I shielded the breakout above 0.64 really, really hard. Like those highs, and I shielded before it even broke out, because I was like, this time it's gonna break out. That one worked out quite well. And I still look at this, and I think this is one of the best charts. I think it's probably like, if the market generally does well, like if altcoins do well, I think XRP is going to be one of the best performers. If Bitcoin does well, I think XRP is going to be one of the few coins that is probably going to hold up with it. If Bitcoin does poorly and the entire market goes to shit, you're not going to have much fun in XRP either. So that's kind of like, but then it doesn't really matter. Generally, once the cycle is over, is one of the worst things to hold. So like, if you're trading this and you're like, but the Doug said this is the best thing to trade, this is the big risk that you take. If the cycle is over, you get completely fucked. And that's something that you like, if you're iron handing this and it is down, like if XRP is down like 50% and you're iron handing it, you're probably going to lose another 50%.
Yeah, but it's fine. The XRP guys have like the most diamond hands in the world, right? They'll hold for another 4 years, and then we have this discussion again, deep into our 30s.
But I generally like, I look at this stupid looking chart.
It's stupid.
And like, if you compare this with any of the other flavor of the month, flavor of the year coins, like if you look at Solana USD, and Solana USD is quite a good chart in my opinion. Like, that's a bullish chart, but it's nothing in comparison to the XRP.
Yeah, it's the same beast.
Yeah.
What do you think of
And
Sol USD, by the way?
I mean, we have 10 hours, 11 hours to the monthly close, and we're probably gonna have a nice monthly close, like above the prior all-time high close.
Yeah.
So, and the weekly time frame got rejected, like for like at the same level, like 2.254 or something,
Yeah.
or 250, depending on how you draw it. And this rejection is quite shit in comparison to the prior one, right? So I'm like, I don't really see a good reason to be bearish, even though it is at resistance, because it's gonna close above monthly resistance. And this rejection of this resistance is quite shit. Like that makes me lean much more bullish than bearish this thing. I'm not gonna trade it. I'm more happy with my ETH than I would be with Solana. But I could see Solana even outperform ETH. I'm not saying it's 100% gonna be wrecked by ETH. I think ETH is gonna be the safe bet in the bear market, in the sense that if you have to have your money in crypto and you don't want to have it in Bitcoin, ETH is gonna be the one that goes down the least. But that doesn't really help you, right?
Yeah, at that
but I
point you're
think
fucked anyway, right? You're
yeah.
chasing
But
the ghosts of your lifetime P&L high and stuff.
like basically your downside on ETH is much more capped than on anything else. I think Solana can easily go down 80%. Bitcoin can probably also, like, if it, like, not right now, but if it goes a little bit higher and kind of like properly bubbles, I think Bitcoin can easily go down 60, 70, 80%.
Just like a classic credit crunch, basically.
Yeah, like with Saylor, basically. I mean, you can take advantage of that whole Saylor situation. If he buys up, like if Bitcoin goes up 150 to 200K and Saylor buys a shitload more, and then we get like a brutal bear market and Bitcoin goes down like 40%, but stays down for a couple of years because, I mean, we get macro factors that are not the same as we've had in the last couple of years, which is very possible, right? Like everything's just kind of crazy right now. So I wouldn't necessarily count on the cycles being the same. Then I think Saylor could get taken advantage of. And then you have another 60, 70, 80% bear market. And I think in those, you're going to be not losing all your money if you're sitting in ETH, just most of your money. And if you're sitting in anything else but Bitcoin and ETH, you're probably going to lose all your money, right?
What's the other side of the equation that matters, right? Like what happens if you do hold? Like what's the likelihood of a comeback, and like how high does it go if it does recover? That's kind of been the main argument for BTC, right? Because people love to point out at the lows, like, oh look, BTC went down this much, but like Dogecoin went down the same amount, and then this coin basically went down the same amount. And so what's the point of like holding BTC if your upside is less? It's like, well, look at what happens next, you know. Your dead stuff stays dead, whereas BTC quite regularly goes back to making new highs. I feel like people over-index on the first part of that equation, like, oh well, when the music stops, everything's fucked. It's like, well, surely, you know, if you're already stuck in the situation of you're holding stuff, surely you're better off holding stuff that historically actually recovers or has a higher likelihood of doing so versus stuff that is just going to get delisted, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like when you think about it, like if ETH goes down 90% and your altcoin goes down 99%, you're like, oh, it's the same.
Oh my
God! But your altcoin, like that's 10x. Like that's literally 10x difference.
That drawdown maths is hilarious, by the way. Like always, to this day, you know.
Like people don't understand how this works, but like your altcoin has to 10x to get back to down 90%, which is insane.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm down 80 to 90%. It's like, bro, that 10% is like a lot. That's like a huge deal. Also, like, I've kind of gone back and forth on this with Solana all-time high spiky thing. I think we just fucking turn pump fun off for like a day, and this shit teleports to like 400. You know, like you need to stop the sales from Sol into USD on all these extractions, and then maybe this thing can break out. That's all. That's only half facetious.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. Generally, when you look at Sol BTC, that one is a little bit tough, I think, but still I mean, recoverable. But if you look at the monthly, it's kind of getting rejected by monthly resistance. Been battling that monthly resistance, and last month it actually fully broke down, and this month it kind of retested it. I don't know if you have the same as I do, but that like green cluster, basically.
Yeah, I've got it.
Like that's a little bit rough, but if that breaks out, it also starts looking really, really good, really fast. Because at the end of the day, Solana went down infinite, went sideways, then went up infinite, and then went sideways again, right? So whichever direction this picks is probably going to be aggressive. So if it picks the upside, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to be bearish this thing. A lot of people kind of confuse my dislike of Solana to me being bearish. I just generally like ETH better than Solana as a project. Like as the like having like I not even that. Like I just don't like the people involved in Solana, and I like the people involved in ETH much better. But that doesn't really have any meaning on me being bullish or bearish something. So I can look at this thing and it can be like, hey, the monthly close is gonna be nice. The weekly is kind of like that's a weak rejection. But I still don't want to buy it because like I think ETH's probably gonna do somewhat similar, at least at this stage of the market. And I just like them much better. And then like people are losing their minds because they're like, oh, you have to love Sol. And I'm like, I just don't. Like all the grifting that's happening is happening on Sol. So it's pretty obvious why I wouldn't like it. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like this generally turns me off something. And the grifting happening on Sol is not a fundamentally bearish thing because it just means that you can use it like large scale to grift, which means that it fundamentally is kind of sound on that front, right?
Yeah, it always just feels a bit different to ETH being used. Like, completely anecdotally, I'm sure this is like good science, right? This is a gut feeling, and I'm sure I can find some evidence to back it up if I look hard enough. This is like the empirical process at Technical Roundup. You just fucking make shit up, and then you hand wave around the evidence for it, or look it up after the fact. But, you know, like with ETH going up, and what we got as a result, like we got Uniswap, for example, and the AMM model, which are still pretty fucking useful. We made quantum leaps in DEXs, and then the moat we created being NFTs, and yeah, people got fucking shafted on those. They still work decently well as a moat, and I feel like just the wealth effect that was created as a result was a bit stickier, and the product improvements and iterations from all that money were also more impactful and stickier compared with Solana and Pump Fund. I just don't feel comfortable making the comparison between the two. Like, if I had to argue against myself, I'd probably do a pretty decent job. But like, hey, it's like the same fucking thing, right? Like the underlying token goes up, people speculate, a lot of money is made, and then whatever the meta is, NFTs went to zero, including OpenSea, and most of the meme coins are going to zero. So like, there are face value comparisons there that make sense, just like how crypto does these wealth events. But part of me wants to just make a distinction between how it played out on ETH versus how it's playing out on Sol. Do you think that's legitimate, or do I have rose-tinted glasses about the mass rape of NFTs?
I mean, I agree with you, but we might be just completely
full of shit. Okay.
Yeah,
At
but I generally I just look at the results of what happened when ETH went up and what happened when Sol went up, right? So basically, ETH goes up, everyone is one, happy, two, people are optimistic about the future of crypto, right? Like I legit think that is something that you can say about the 2021 cycle. That is something that you can say about the 2018, 2017 bull run. ETH goes up, people are like, crypto is so cool, right? Like there's so much things we can do with this. We just need to improve this and that. And then like, it's gonna full send, like crypto's gonna take over. And then compare this to what happened when Solana went up, which is celebrity tokens, endless grifts, endless scams, like kind of like, and this is what I mean with the culture, right? Like the culture of Solana is max extraction, or like not necessarily from even the leaders of Solana, but just like by the community, which is like I just don't like it. Like whereas like this whole like, okay, crypto is shit, but I'm gonna make my bag. All of that just puts me off, right? Like I'm like, the result of Solana pumping was basically everyone getting scammed. And then the end result was Trump launching his coin on Solana. And the results of ETH pumping was basically everyone being optimistic. Now, in both cases, everyone got fucked, right? Like, so the end result of like, okay, who made money, who kept their money, whatever. I think at the end results, probably not so dissimilar, but just the culture around it, just like it's depressing to be in crypto when Solana goes up because the culture it promotes. And it's very, very nice to be in crypto when ETH goes up because of the culture it promotes. That's, to me, kind of like at the core of it, why I just don't necessarily like it so much. But as a trade, I mean, anyone that's arguing that Solana's been the best trade of the cycle, I think, like, or at least one of the best trades of the cycle, I would say XRP was on the same level, just because it was offset to Bitcoin, right? Where Bitcoin ran first, and then you could roll into XRP, whereas with Solana it was kind of like at the same time. But Solana moved more, so probably was the better trade of the cycle. But anyway, like, that's kind of like my like feeling on it, and this is just, I mean, doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. It's just how I look at the space, and how people conduct themselves.
Yeah, it's just a nice bit of conjecture, you know. Maybe part of it is because ETH people tend to be more ideological. Like, they genuinely thought NFTs were going to be fucking used for Taylor Swift tickets and shit. Like, whereas on the Sol guys, it's like, I will make USD and buy a sports car, and that's it. Fuck you. At least on the trenches pump fund side. So
yeah,
God knows. Although, you know, the market ultimately is the best arbiter for this stuff. And you look at Sol against ETH, and I mean, that'll tell you most of the story for most of this cycle, you know?
Yeah.
And also just where most of the wealth events have been created. Like, it hasn't been on ZK Sync, you know?
I mean, there's a reason why Trump launched on Solana, right?
Exactly.
Because there was
World
much
Liberty,
more money.
didn't that have a bit of a shit launch at first? Like, it didn't sell out, did it?
Yes. I mean, the reason why it didn't is because it's basically the structure of the thing is just completely fucked.
Oh, fine, okay.
Basically, you have to dox, if I remember right. You have to basically, you're not allowed to sell for a year. You don't even get tokens for a year or something.
Fine. Very
like, basically,
swampy,
you legit get bent over backwards, and it was so bad that people, like, even the Trump loving people didn't want to buy it. So basically, it's not necessarily because it's on ETH, but it is funny because they launched on ETH and no one bought it, and then they launched in Solana and everyone bought it.
And then they fucked it anyway.
Yeah, but I think, and I mean, they did manage to, because that was still open, right? Like, the funny thing is, like, basically, they didn't fill the sale.
Yes.
Like the World Liberty thing. Until Trump just gigamooned. Like, the Trump coin basically managed to fill all of that because people were like, oh, there's, like, it's just basically, like, we saw Trump go up infinite, so we have to have some action of this. I would actually not be surprised if it doesn't do so well once it comes out, whatever the fuck they're trying to do. It doesn't really matter, though. I basically, I think a lot of people took the laggard on that one. They only bought the deal because they saw Trump go up a lot. Okay. Trump went up a lot. Now they cannot get out. Like, they couldn't take advantage of Trump going up so much because it's illiquid. You cannot sell. And now Trump is down a lot, and you're kind of sitting on these, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't.
Like, where's the momentum on this momentum trade?
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting one. But
fine. Ugh.
Like, it performing shit didn't have much to do with ETH and much more to do with the structure.
Yeah. Although, you know, the blanket question of if you had to launch a grift/scam, where would you do it? There's no second best, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's literally it, right? Like, this is, I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like the Trumps kind of agree, right? They launched a quote unquote legitimate project on ETH, and they launched a scam/grift on Solana. And
look at the results.
Yeah, and I mean, people that love to trade the scams grifts, I mean, they are obviously gonna gravitate towards something like that. And the people that trade ideologically, which I think is, like, at face value, it's like something really dumb to do, right? Like, you don't want to trade to ideology. Like, your ideology should only matter for your longer term holds, right?
Sure.
But to me, taking a trade on ETH is so much easier because of my ideology around ETH. It's just like, feels more comfortable. But that could be like a flaw of mine and not
a personal cope.
Whatever. Yeah.
And look, you were in fucking XRP meme coins, you know, so forgive me for not taking that point too seriously.
No, you shouldn't.
That's kind of all I had. The news was more or less stuff we discussed and kind of boring. What do you think is, like, important, or what would you pay attention to? Because it's kind of almost becoming hard to summarize these shows, even because you could be speaking to massively, you know, people's circumstances and portfolios are so wildly different. And I think that's where a lot of the sentiment contamination has come from on CT. Like, you might be talking to one guy who's been mostly overweight, like BTC Sol, and he probably feels pretty fucking good about the market, right? And then his mate replying to him in the comments was holding all the fucking crypto Twitter meme coins, and his portfolio literally doesn't fucking exist anymore. And these people are sharing a space time, you know. It's like very hard to come to any. You're not even speaking the same language at that point. Like a BTC plus Sol holder versus CT memes holder. That like it's the difference is fucking vast. So in the past, it would have been easier to say, well, this is the sector / meta that's strong. It's still more or less BTC dependent. So here's the BTC analysis, and then you can fucking these are the alts that look interesting. You can craft a decision tree just based on those two variables, given correlations, right? You can't even do that anymore. So how would you give like an overview, I guess, of where we're at? For me, it's essentially still kind of the same as it was, which is, well, you know, BTC is in a pretty clean daily range. Dispersion is still high, and you essentially have a choice of the stuff I said at the beginning. You're either playing BTC Sol high cap breakout games, like literally BTC ETH Sol proximity to breakout / the current range, and that's essentially what you're focused on, or you've decided to go into the trenches essentially. And I don't find that there's a super sticky or compelling narrative on the high caps or mid caps for the time being. It's just not where the market's at. So that would be my attempt, but it feels very disconnected and disjointed. Do you have a better framework for this type of stuff?
I mean, I generally think we had like a massive outsized altcoin move, especially in the meme coin sector, that now got rectified. Basically, like you had these memes go down 80%. I think basically everything's reset now somewhat. Like so we're back at the okay. Look at Bitcoin. If it goes up, you're probably gonna have a somewhat decent time in the midterm. I think like if Bitcoin breaks out here and goes, there's a good chance that it does what we've seen Trump do, which is just suck all the liquidity because people are afraid of missing out. But I think that liquidity would come back to altcoins quite quickly. So basically, that this like the last 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks of kind of like the entire altcoin market gets completely shafted. Put it back in the right place where we are now, kind of like in line again with everything. Like Bitcoin goes up, it's generally good. Whereas Bitcoin not doing anything in the last weeks has led to altcoins completely dying. I think that's not the case anymore. Basically, if Bitcoin goes down, your altcoins will go down. If Bitcoin breaks out, I think there's a good chance that that you're going to have short-term pain that gets reversed quite quickly. And if it keeps on ranging, I mean, then we're probably just going to see chop. Like, I don't think the whole like everything is dying thing is gonna continue. I think we kind of had capitulation on all of these meme coins, and they're now at valuations that are at least short-term sustainable. Like when you have coins like WIF and PopCat down 80%, for example, it's much easier to deal with the fact that there's infinite new meme coins being created because the market caps are much smaller, right? So something has to go wrong again for these to go lower, I think. Still don't think they're a good trade. But yeah, I generally think Bitcoin is still, like, again, the driver. And you kind of have to look at it and kind of like see how that goes. Basically, the moment it breaks out and pushes hard, gonna be bad for altcoins. I think probably gonna, like, altcoins are probably gonna be outperformed by Bitcoin. But then the moment it slows down, I think that like Bitcoin at 130, 40, 50k is gonna get enough new people in that altcoins would catch up really quickly. Is all I'm saying. And if Bitcoin goes down, like, you're gonna see massive death on like an enormous scale on the altcoin front, just because that would lead to like not only like a little capitulation event like we had like a couple of days ago, but like a real capitulation event of like basically like that one cycle, like, and capitulation event that you get like once a cycle, where you see like Bitcoin breaking or going below 90k. I think you would see the altcoins being down 50, 60, 70% from where they are right now.
I mean, that's mathematically impossible, right? They're down 80%. They can only go down 20.
Yeah.
The first cycle maths.
So good, yeah. If you add it up, it doesn't make much sense. But basically, that's kind of like my thesis. But I do agree with you. That's a little bit more complicated than it used to be.
Yeah. Well, at least
But
BTC isn't complicated. 92, 99, 106. Thanks for watching, right?
yeah, pretty much exactly. Yeah,
Awesome.
and it's so funny, like the flip flopping that I've seen, and the and one thing that I want to say, right?
Go for it.
It's something that you have to always keep in mind is that if someone is printing or losing a lot of money, their opinion gets flawed a lot. There's something that you've seen in the last couple of days, like a bunch of meme coin traders having strong opinions about Bitcoin and where it's gonna go. And the reason why they have strong opinions is because they're down 80%. And then they're like, okay, like it's just fucking over, like everything's fucked. And the same is true on the other side, right? Like someone that's like giga printing, we look at like, and this is how it like how cycles end. Like someone that giga prints is very rarely going to be bearish, because you're so euphoric that it's really hard to have negative emotions, and being bearish is negative inherently, right? Like you have to basically be like, yeah, okay, people are going to be in pain. It's inherently negative, and the opposite is obviously inherently positive. And then for those, like for most people, it's really hard to kind of look at it objectively. So whenever you see someone in immense pain and you think, okay, I'm gonna listen to this guy's advice, maybe don't. If you see someone that's like immensely euphoric because everything's up infinite, maybe don't listen to that person. I mean, it's the same. Like I'm in an XRP position from 0.6 to $3. Maybe don't listen to me about where it's gonna go because I'm gonna be infinitely rich on that front. But I feel like I'm personally quite well rounded on that front because I'm just generally like I tend to gravitate towards neutral even when I shouldn't be. But just generally, I think that's pretty valuable advice when you listen to people, because you need to see where they're coming from, and you get a little bit delusional when stuff goes your way or against you. Both ways kind of fuck with your ability to think straight.
Yeah, and you don't even know like who the fuck you're listening to. Like, have they been in BTC and Sol and they feel like the market, they've done super well and have had no drawdown? Are you listening to someone who was long all the CT coins and they're in the fucking, in the absolute shitter mentally because they've gone through a bear market? Are they LARPing? Like, you just don't know any of this stuff. So more than ever before, I think the idea of how people are doing is incredibly opaque, and that would mean that if you're getting their reads on sentiment or positioning or flows, etc., probably just listen to the market more than people on Twitter.
Yeah,
Unless
and
it's
the
us,
same.
obviously.
Yeah, and I mean the same is
right, so handsome.
And the same is obviously true for yourself, right?
Yes.
This is not just for the people that you're listening to, but like when you're getting euphoric, whatever, you're gonna have the same feelings that the people that I just explained. So like, be careful when stuff goes wildly against you or for you. Like, you start becoming unreasonable. It's just how it is.
That's a good note to end on. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to Woot for supporting the show as always. Links available in the description below. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
See ya. Bye bye.